Likewise.
Suleiman, should I begin to admit our participants that are waiting in the waiting room?
Yes. Please. So I just want to let you know, Federico, that a lot of our members, we did a survey about 2-3 weeks ago. A lot of our members have very basic prior experience or knowledge with blockchain or cryptocurrencies. Of course, we're all uni students, so during the course of this discussion conversation, like a lot of the topics that we'll be focusing on are not going to be technical. It's mainly going to be the vision of the project, what the project is, what it does, a lot of your views, mainly non-technical stuff. So I hope you're okay with that, because again, none of us are really technical
yeah,
side.
that's good. That's cool. I wonder how many of you like have experience, like know more or less how blockchain works, because it can also make a short introduction to that if you want.
Yes, please. That's welcome. That's more than welcome. We do fundamental sessions. So last week was our fundamental session where we taught a lot of our members the basics of blockchain technology, just the very basics. But if you also want to go over it, like we're more than happy for you to do that.
I mean, I was just thinking of doing a very like a short, like conceptual introduction, not something technical. But okay, let me add this to my 1 second to the deck, because I thought that was like people already knew what it was. So let me just add it 1 second before sharing my screen.
Yeah, I mean, I have topics prepared that I want us to focus on, but if you want to cover that as well, just on top, that's fine.
Okay, you just have to copy, this couple of slides, and that's it. Okay. Let me copy this.
Is screen sharing okay? Are you able to screen share without?
Yeah. Well, I haven't tried because I was copying the slides, but now that I did that, I can. Okay, 1 second. Let me check if I copy the right slides. Yeah. Okay. Just added. 1 second. This is like making my slide deck in real time. There you go. It's done.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you have a better talk because it's like also includes a presentation to blockchain.
Yeah. I think if you don't mind, we just want to give it 1 or 2 more minutes for a few more of our members to just come and join, and then we can start. That's okay with you?
Yeah, no problem. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. I mean, mainly what I'll be doing is I just want to introduce myself first. I'm Suleiman. I'm the co-founder and one of the co-presidents of the Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Society at the. Right now, I think in the chat is Laban, if he wants to introduce himself.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm Laban. I'm also a co-president. I'm also the secretary, so I deal with writing the emails, all that sort of stuff as well. And I'm a computer science student as well, so I'm very interested in this.
Awesome, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
There is also Hassan should be joining, one of my other co-presidents, really soon. Oh yeah, Hassan is here.
I'm here. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Hi Federico, my name's Hassan. I'm one of the co-presidents. I actually was the one who ran the fundamentals session the other week. I'm hoping to do that every 2 weeks. But yeah, nice to meet you. Very excited for what's going to happen today.
Awesome, nice meeting you.
I think Sam is also here. Or he will be here very soon. So I just want to see how many people are here, have joined. I think I'll give it 1 more minute. I think, I have some topics prepared that I want to go over. The first being just you, who you are, Federico. If you can talk a bit more about your background, what got you into the blockchain technology. And just, I have a personal question about just your management style as a leader. And of course, the main topic, which a lot of people are really interested in this chat, is Kleros. And then I also want to talk about just legal tech, the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And the last topic for the discussion is Web3. I will have a few questions about that as well. I'm sure you have opinions on that. But yeah, that's just what we have planned, the topics that we have planned for this discussion.
That's great. So do you want me to first present and then we go to the questions, or how do you want to go about?
Yeah, sure. That way is fine. You present and then we'll go on to, just the first topic, I think just about you, that's very important. I think before the project comes the people. So we could talk about you first and then you can do your presentation.
Absolutely. Good. Well, let me know when you want to start. I'm ready.
Yeah, I think now is fine, really. Please go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me, Suleiman. My name is Federico. I'm from Argentina. My background is in economics and in philosophy, and I started my career working in online media and important newspaper in Argentina. I was in the online business section, and that got me in touch with startups, innovation, and in that in that kind of public back then in 2013 more or less, people were starting to speak about Bitcoin, and Argentina was a really an early adopter in the Bitcoin and generally speaking crypto, because of the country had so many problems with currency, like hyperinflation, and also also lots of corruption and bad governance and all the things that people know about Argentina. And so even if most people were interested in the financial aspects of blockchain, I came to see it more as a tool that could be used for more than the financial things, like for the to reinvent some parts of the governance of a society. Back then, there was some people starting to see how blockchain could be used for making voting systems more secure, like a traceability of ballots and that kind of things. But I saw like I was interested in a different part of the governance of a society, that is like justice systems. I mean, the way in which a society resolves disputes defines lots of society. I mean, how this works basically. If you have a corrupt judiciary, then like nothing will work, because judges will be part of the collusion, and this will affect how people like live their lives. If people can't get access to justice, so that society is like doomed, let's say. So that was my first my interest in blockchain. It was more in the governance aspects, and also in particular within governance and justice. And those were the early days of what now became Kleros, and that we are going to discuss in length a bit later.
Okay, thank you. I was had a personal interest, I think, in a lot of the leaders in the blockchain space. You have some people that are eccentric. You have some people that prefer to be completely anonymous, like Satoshi. You have some people that are a bit more introverted, like Vitalik. So my question is, also a lot of the leaders, one thing they have in common is they're willing to share power and decision making, which is like opposed to traditional leadership, where a lot of the leaders do not share power as much. So my question really is, what is your management style like, and what did you look for when assembling the team that would eventually build Kleros?
Well, I like to think that the management style is very horizontal. I don't know if Orlando will agree then, but I mean, I think that especially when you are building some blockchain protocol, you don't have to see yourself as the owner. I mean, I'm not the owner of Kleros. I'm just what I'd say on internet, slang, what we call the catalyst. I mean, I am one of the persons who started this, and then but this is like a public good that is owned by the community, and the community will become more and more important as time goes by, and the influence of founders will, I think, fade away progressively. I think a very important, metaphor for how I think blockchain protocols need to be managed is, there was this ancient guy called Cleisthenes, and he lived in the ancient Athens. And this guy, he was, when Athens was a dictatorship, a monarchy, and they made a revolution, and they overthrew the king. And then this Cleisthenes guy, he was like the brain, the mastermind who built, what we know now as the Athenian democracy, and all of the assembly and all of the popular courts and all that. And then the guy just faded away, right? Just that historians even discuss if this was really a guy who, he historically existed, or it was just a name that the elites back then agreed to use for or if it's a myth, basically. So
yeah.
George Washington had kind of a similar story. It's he was this big general, and he after the revolution, he stays as president for a while, and he at some point has the opportunity to become the king of the United States. Basically, back then it was not clear that the US would become a democracy. They first wanted to have the independence and then decide how to govern themselves. But Washington was very important in how he, how he envisioned it. So he accepted to stay for 2 terms, and people kept asking him to run for the 3rd one, and he said no. He said that if I stay here, we are going just to replace old king by a new king. But the whole point of the revolution was to make, a republic, a democracy. So I think that the blockchain founders, they have lots of things to learn from this attitude, and that's how I imagine, that it will go for Kleros, and hopefully for Ethereum as well, and for other, blockchain protocols.
Okay, thank you. I think that leads nicely into Kleros itself. I think, yeah, that's actually perfect. That leads directly to Kleros. I think I'll do first, if you want to do your presentation, and then I'll ask some of the questions that I had prepared that I think everyone wants to know.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to make first a short presentation about blockchain, because Suleiman told me that maybe not everyone is familiar with blockchain. If you are becoming bored because you know all this, let me know and I can just move forward faster. Let's start. As some of you know, and maybe not others, the blockchain was born in 2008, midst of the financial crisis of the Lehman Brothers and all that. And in this context, this guy or group of guys or woman or who knows what, called Satoshi Nakamoto, publishes this paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, proposing Bitcoin as a currency, digital currency, and based on a new database technology called blockchain. So people tend to explain blockchain with mining and cryptography and stuff, but if you are not technical, then maybe you can understand it better, with this the little story from this place called the island of Palau, which is in the Micronesia. This is between Australia and the Polynesia, this beautiful island with these beautiful beaches. They have this tribe called the Yaps. The Yaps, they have this donut-shaped rock called raystone, and this is their currency. As we have, paper money and coins, they have this. So why do they have this hole in the middle? Well, because it's easier to transport for your friends to help you, make payments. So they put the stick in the middle, and then they transport it, and then you can make payments. But of course, your friends can help you one or twice. But if you keep asking them all the time to help you, well, they're going to charge you or something. And I mean, so what the app figure out is that they could just maybe let the stones in the same place, and then remember who was the owner of each of them instead of having to move them all the time. So the question they had is how do we remember who is the owner? So one option they consider was, okay, let's have some guy from our tribe to, like me, be in charge of remembering who owns each stone. And then they discarded the solution because, well, what happens if this guy just forgets, or what happens if this guy, I mean, he's bribed and changes the owners of the rocks, and what happens if maybe he, well, starts to charge for fees for everyone who wants to make a transaction, right? So since the apps didn't want to put the monopoly of the monetary system in the hands of just one guy, they had this different solution where they decided that everyone in the tribe should remember who the owner of each rock was. And also the owner of each stone since the moment the rock was carved until the present moment. And also remember all of the people who were the previous owners, right? Each of them had to remember this by heart. So when someone had to make a payment to another one, like Alice wants to pay Bob, that she gathers the tribe in the the square, and then she announces, okay, guys, so this rock stone that is on the beach near palm tree number 4, okay, I'm going to transfer this to Bob. So since everyone would listen to this announcement, okay, they would update their mental ledger, and now this was updated to the new version of the database. And so that's how they knew that if Alice wanted to transfer this stone again, well, they had to reject the transaction because that didn't belong to her anymore, right? So this system, this structure of the monetary system that they had at the yaps, it's kind of similar to the underlying logic of blockchains, right? It's a ledger that where every one of the nodes has identical copy of the amount of crypto assets that each account has in it. And so if someone wants to make a transfer from one account to another, like the computer, and so they have this private key that they can use to sign transactions. And basically what this does is an announcement. Okay, this asset that is in this account, I'm going to move this to this account. And then since everyone sees this, so the database gets updated to a new state. And so now all of the nodes know that the one unit of asset was removed from this place and one was added into this place, and no one is the owner of this, right? So this is very important. This is a public good that no computer, no node, no member of this network owns, and no one can introduce arbitrary changes into this, right? Which is very important since this is dealing with a very sensitive information. I mean, the guy who controls the monetary system, as we saw, can basically destroy the community, and or they can create lots of harm. So this is the main thing that is important to learn about blockchain. And even, I mean, the technical aspects, then you can look for them, but this is what you need to understand conceptually. This is a network of people or computers that maintain a public good of monetary transactions, right? And this they reach this. So what the great invention of Satoshi Nakamoto was this system for all of these computers to be able to have a consensus on this database and a unique copy of the database. Okay, all good for now?
Yeah.
Okay, let me take you now a bit actually before blockchain. 1995, maybe I don't know if any of you were born back then, but by then, so there is this guy called Nick Szabo, who is a cryptographer, and he's also legal scholar, let's say. And he published a paper called Smart Contracts, Building Blocks for Digital Free Markets. And in this paper, he makes a quite interesting remark, which is the following. Like, the world is moving towards the digital economy, e-commerce, globalization, and still the technology that us humans have to make contracts is based on 15th century ideas, basically his Gutenberg press. So he thinks that this technology of written paper contracts is really going to become a bottleneck for this new world digital economy that is going to be created with the internet. So what he says is that we need to adapt the previous technology of contracts to a technology that basically responds to the needs of the digital age. And he coins this concept of smart contract, which he explains in that paper in the following way. So you have, of course, Alice and Bob. How else would they be called? And Alice, she owns a car, and she wants to sell this car to Bob in installments. So they make an agreement, a digital agreement, a smart contract, where he will make a payment like of one coin every month into the account where they agree. So Bob makes the first payment, and then he takes the car, and then he goes with his wife, visit a bit, some places in the UK, and then at some point he stops making the payments of the installments, and what happens, his digital key is disabled, and Alice's digital key becomes enabled again, and so she recovers her car, and in a way which is almost immediate, right, and very costless. And so how much would it have costed to her to recover her car in a traditional court? She will have to prove first that she was the owner of the car, with the paper saying property title. Yeah. She will have to prove that she had an agreement with Bob with another paper saying sale contract, and then she has to go to judge, and this judge has to analyze all this, and then after he's convinced, the judge is convinced that she's right, so he's going to say a policeman to take the car, right? And so this is going to cost her, how much? At least 2 or 3 cars in time wasted, lawyers, I don't know, etc. Right? So the main thing about the smart contract is that this thing of like self-enforcing that they have, these are agreements that they self-enforce in an automatic way and in an immediate way. So, and this can be hugely efficient for legal systems. So this idea of smart contracts by Nick Szabo was from 1995, and it just was abstract theoretical idea for a long time. And in 2014, this other guy, who, well, as you know, he's Vitalik Buterin. He must be like maybe a couple of years older than you, and he comes up with this blockchain called Ethereum that is in many ways similar to the Bitcoin blockchain, but it has a different programming language, which is more complex, and it basically enables to write smart contracts, right? So basically, almost anything that you could put and you can express under the structure of if X then Y, then you can write a smart contract for this. Classical example, like a flight insurance. Then if the flight takes off with more than a 20-minute delay, then the passengers are going to be reimbursed 20% of the ticket, right? And this happens, in a way which is like automatic, and they don't have to go to, to the company, to the customer service, they don't have to go to the ombudsman, they don't have to go to court or nothing. After the X thing happens, and this is verifiable through some method called Oracle. The Y will follow, and so it's automatic and happens at a very, very low cost. And at least in our vision of the future of low cost, because currently blockchains have a number of scalability concerns, but we can discuss that later. But this should be like way, way cheaper than alternative methods for resolving this type of situation, right? And this starts to get us a bit into Kleros. So let's add a bit more complexity into this smart contracts blockchain logic. And let's say we have Alice, who is a French entrepreneur, and she hires Bob, who is in Guatemala to develop a video for her company, right? So they agree on some terms, and so he starts working. Then let's say there's a dispute. Like, how do you solve this? She's not going to court in Guatemala. Arbitration traditional methods are really expensive, for like $500. Agreement between two users of the internet, right? But let's say that they used an app we developed called Escrow, and this is an escrow smart contract where you can, basically deposit money, and this smart contract is going to hold that money as in escrow until Bob delivers the product. And by using this system, both Alice and Bob agree that if there is a dispute in this contract, this is going to be resolved by an arbitrator, which is called Kleros. Yeah. So if no dispute happens, so all good. Money is transferred to Bob, and she's happy with her video. All good. Okay, but let's imagine a dispute happens, and so the funds are going to be locked into the smart contract, and now Kleros is going to select a jury of experts who are going to analyze the evidence. They're going to analyze the agreement, and they are going to decide who is right about this. Very important thing. Kleros is built on Ethereum. So this means that no one can tamper with the evidence. No one can tamper with the video that was delivered by Bob. So he cannot, when the trial comes, change, okay, yeah, no, this was the thing. So no, the jurors are going to see the right evidence. And no one can tamper with how jurors are selected. So the random generation mechanism that Kleros uses is going to pick the jurors in the way the code was meant to pick the jurors. So this is going to be very transparent, and this complies with a very important feature that we expect from like legal systems, which is like due process. So jurors use an interface which looks like this. This is the Kleros interface in its current status. We're doing some improvements, and we are preparing a launch of a new one. But so this is how it works now. And so let's say that majority decides that she is right, and so Kleros tells this smart contract reimburse Alice, so she gets her money back, and the case is over, right? And this happens, of course, much cheaper than what she would have to have paid had she gone to, the Guatemala court system. So the first, feature of decentralized justice is this idea that the system is secured by blockchain. It's a DAO is a system that works in an automatic way, following the code of how it's developed, and that code is on a blockchain, so no one can tamper with that, and no one can change how it works. So this is a very important feature of decentralized justice. And of course, I imagine you think, okay, but how do you solve this? How do you select these jurors, and who are they, right? So let's say that this is this woman. She's a video developer or producer from Myanmar, and she has a job like working at a video production company during the day, and on the evenings she wants to make some extra money on the side by being an arbitrator in cases happening in Kleros. So anyone can be an arbitrator in Kleros. They just need to have this token called PNK. The name comes from the ancient ID token that the ancient Greek used to select the jurors for trials. It was they also used randomness, and they had a allotment machine called Kleroterium, and the word Kleros means randomness in Greek, basically. So this is a ERC20 token that if you want to be a juror in Kleros, this you need to buy this. This is kind of a lottery ticket that will give you the right to be drawn in cases in the Kleros protocol. So Kleros has lots of different like courtrooms if you want. In this case, let's say this woman, she deposits the token into the video production court. Other people also make their deposit, and then Kleros, let's say, it randomly draws like five jurors, right? So now these jurors, they're going to have the right to analyze the evidence and to vote on who is right on this case, right? And an interesting thing is that they don't have to prove what is their identity. They don't have to say who they are, and they don't even have to prove that they have the right skills to resolve the case in which they are drawn, which might be a bit, confusing for lots of people. Like, what do you mean? Like, these people anyone can just be a juror even if they don't know anything about the case? Well, this is a bit like where the magic of Kleros comes in, and for you to understand better, let me introduce you to this gentleman who is called Thomas Schelling. He was a Nobel Prize in Economics in 2005. And this gentleman was, a game theorist, and he used to develop different systems. And, game theory is a discipline within economics that studies how agents behave in contexts of different information asymmetries or information situations where they have to make strategies in order to optimize their goals in situations of imperfect information and different types of contexts. So Schelling was, in particular, he was famous for developing a concept called focal points. So this is in his book Strategy of Conflict, which I do recommend. It's a great book about game theory. And focal points is about how people coordinate when they have to make decisions, and they need to reach a consensus with others, even when they don't know how others are going to act. Let me just show you a little example because it's going to be easier. So all of you have to pick one of these numbers, and if you pick the same as the majority, you make $20, and if you pick a different one, you make 0. So and you cannot communicate with the others, right? So in this type of scenario, empirically, people tend to pick 1,000. Why? Well, because it looks special, basically. And even if any of these 12 numbers would be potentially appropriate to coordinate, so empirically, because of cultural reasons, we tend to pick that one. And so that number is what we call the Schelling point or the focal point in this particular exercise, right? So if you put a number of people, of jurors, who are going to analyze the same evidence, and they're going to have to vote, each of them independently on the video production case, let's say, and they have the incentive to choose the same thing as the majority in order to make money. And if they choose different from the majority, they will lose money. So in this situation, the right choice and the choice to which they will converge typically is the truth about the dispute at hand, right? The truth in a consensual community way, it's not the transcendent truth. It's like what this community of video developers tend to see as the right decision when they see the same contract and when they see the same, video, when they, and people who, they work as video producers, so they kind of know how to interpret, if this video that was delivered is a good video in the context of this contract that they were given, right? So this is how sharing points are applied in the context of dispute resolution. And what this amounts to is a system where users who try to game the system, they will tend to lose money. For example, let's say I'm one of these guys and I just deposit my token and I get drawn, and then I just start voting randomly, and then I start making money. I vote randomly, and I vote A, B, and I don't even watch. I see the evidence, and what's going to happen in this situation is that I have a high likelihood to be incoherent with the majority of the voters. So then I will stake my coin, I will lose it. I will stake my coin, I will lose it. I will stake my coin. Oh, maybe I was lucky and got on the right side of the majority. But on average, as I keep playing this game, I will tend to lose more than when I make. So I'm going to be out of coins and leave the system. Okay. And on the contrary, if I just play by the rules and I analyze I have the right skills for the court where I become a juror, and then I take my time to assess the evidence and vote honestly, then I will, well, maybe I can be wrong sometimes, because there is subjectivity and different people can have different interpretations of whether the video was done accordingly to the required quality or not. But on average, even if sometimes I might be in the wrong side, on average, if I do my job honestly, I will tend to be more on the majority side, and then I will make money as I provide, well, decisions and justice to the world, let's say. Okay. So then there is two other important features of decentralized justice. One is that it's based on ideas that come from the field of collective intelligence, of how we as people make decisions together, and how how these systems need to be structured for this decision to be optimal. And the third one is, as you have seen, this works very differently to traditional dispute resolution systems, because it's based on a different understanding of how people are incentivized and how they can be incentivized in order to produce the right rulings for cases where they have to work. So remember, feature one, blockchain; feature two, collective intelligence, the idea of people having their disputes resolved by peers; and the third feature is idea of economic incentives in order for them to have the right behavior. So what are the use cases for this? Imagine e-commerce, user disputes in an e-commerce platform. This can be resolved by Kleros instead of the internal customer support team of Amazon, eBay, or whatever. Imagine small insurance claims, for example, who should be held liable to pay for the repair of this, car crash. So the insurance company or the customer. So they, of course, each of them, they think the other one is a scammer, so they don't want. So a neutral third party assessing the evidence is probably going to be a good way to do it. Imagine lots of different customer against, telecommunications company, customer against, utilities, whatever, small claims happening in this traditional, ombudsman-like situation. Very recently, there was a contract in Mexico that had Kleros as an arbitration clause in a landlord and tenant agreement, and this was the first time. So Kleros produced a result which led to the eviction of the tenant, and court in Mexico recognized the Kleros ruling as valid. So this is a use case which is very important, and that can be, can grow a lot. And then you have, all of the Web3 ecosystem of the future. I mean, for example, imagine when we start playing games into like decentralized esports platforms, and there is like one team and claims that the other team they cheated, and I mean these are two teams with 5 players each, and they are in who knows which countries, like this. The relevant jurisdiction we're not going to solve this into a court, let's say. I mean, the relevant jurisdiction for this type of claim is basically the internet, and Kleros is like a decentralized system that can adjudicate like this type of situations, which are native to the digital age, that need to be solved by some digital age tool, right? So Kleros, why do we do this at Kleros with this so weird, if you want, system of incentives, and why does this work so different from traditional systems? Because, of course, I mean, with COVID, we learned that we can resolve a lot of disputes with the internet, and like not going to court to have hearings. Like we can do this online, but the traditional online dispute resolution systems are basically like, if you want, mini trials happening online. Of course, this is more efficient than going to a place because you don't have to travel, but it's kind of like 20-30% more efficient. Kleros, because of the very special way in which structure the incentives and all the resolution process, it can resolve the claims like a 10x more efficient, 10x faster. In Kleros cases, like tend to take no more than 1 week, and with the transparency of blockchain DAOs, which make sure that no one can tamper with the process, right? Of course, this doesn't mean that Kleros is going to be the holy grail of justice. So what we imagine that this market is going to evolve to is to a division of different sections, depending on how objective and what is basically the cost of different types of claims. For more objective and very simple cases, this is probably going to be solved by just automated AI, systems, which of course this is cheaper, faster than human systems. But there are some cases that are kind of too complex for an AI tool to like automatically solve, because they have some need for interpretation, or they have some element that makes them, not suitable for machine learning type of resolution. But still, these cases are kind of too low cost or to be solved by, a traditional process which costs way more, right? So Kleros is going to be especially like strong into this area. And then there's other cases which are more complex that really require some legal expertise, or they require to interpret norms, or that they involve multiple parties. So those cases are going to still probably be solved by more traditional methods, online or in person. I don't know, it depends. But so this is going to still be part of how the landscape of resolution is going to be structured. Let me just give you a little example now of how Kleros integrates with the Web3 ecosystem. And as you may know, so there are like exchanges where everything is decentralized, called decentralized exchanges, and they are like, for example, Uniswap, where you can like list your token, and then people can start buying and selling, right? But the problem with this is that like this can result in like scams. People sending tokens that impersonate real tokens. So you buy a token and thinking it's token A, but in reality it's like another different one, and you lost your money. So that kind of lots of scams are going around in this ecosystem, and it's hard. How do you solve this if you are Uniswap? I mean, either you have your internal team evaluate all the tokens that are sent to you, which are like in the thousands per day maybe, or and also it's not decentralized because you have the control of what gets listed and what doesn't, or you have some decentralized solution. And so with Kleros, we developed a mechanism design in an app called Tokens, where we try to have the community be incentivized to resolve this type of claims of which tokens should be allowed into a decentralized exchange. So let's say Alice wants her token to be listed into the exchange. So she makes a submission of a form where she has to complete some fields like the contract address and the ticker on the name on that, the logo, and she makes a deposit. And this stays visible for everyone, for all the users for a while. So during this period, users can see if the submission complies or not with the rules of the exchange. So let's say this token complies. So the token now is listed in the exchange and she gets back her deposit. And now she submits another token and users see it and they say, hey, this is a scam, right? So any user can challenge this submission by making another deposit. And now there's going to be like a trial between the submitter who claims that this is an acceptable token and the guy who challenged this, right? Who claims that this is not an acceptable submission because it's a Ponzi or whatever. So a jury of experts, of Kleros jurors, they're going to consider this evidence and they're going to vote. And let's say in this case, they reject the submission. So the token Alice submitted is removed and Bob keeps her deposit, right? So that's the incentive he had for being vigilant and try to, detect, non-compliant tokens. He's kind of a bounty hunter that is looking for making money by challenging, malicious actors. Let me show you one specific case. So there was someone who submitted this token called the buyer chain. This is the project. The submitter makes the submission, and then someone challenged this, and then when jurors started to analyze this, so they kind of see that this guy who was allegedly the CTO of the project, he didn't have many YouTube talks or online presence that one would expect from a CTO of an important project. So okay, and then this guy claimed that he was part of some Oxford blockchain group, and so some juror they called to Oxford and hello sir, yeah, can I speak to Scott Bingley? We never heard that name here. I'm no idea what you're talking about, and we don't really have an Oxford blockchain group, right? So after that, so they started digging more, and they found that this guy actually that was a fake profile. That this guy didn't exist. It was just a random picture taken from who knows where, and it was a scam basically. And Kleros detected this scam in a couple of days after this was submitted, and 8 months after this, we read on the newspaper that the Chinese police department had classified the project buyer chain as a Ponzi scheme, and this ended up with arrests and all that. So Kleros was able to detect this scam way before the Chinese police. And how many people were scammed between this moment where this Kleros discovered this, but these guys were still selling tokens in other places, and were at the moment when the police finally shut this down, right? So And then Uniswap started adding some list of tokens, of verified tokens, into their interface that you can choose. If you choose like the Kleros list of tokens, they only show you tokens that were pre-approved by the Kleros system, right? So, which is now I think it's the most popular of all, and I think it's this is already a couple of weeks old. It's almost 1,500 tokens submitted and more than 1,000 registered. So this is a lot of tokens that have been through a vetting system done by the community, right? And imagine when NFTs become bigger and people will start, of course, there are like these decentralized NFT platforms where people will are already starting to scam others and make frauds and plagiarism and etc. You need some kind of system like Kleros to verify that the NFTs that are sent to these platforms comply with like not being scams, not being plagiarized, not being stolen or whatever, right? So this is a very powerful compliance tool that can address a really big number of use cases in all of the Web3 ecosystem. So if you want to learn a bit more about Kleros, you can read this book that is available for download in our website, kleros.io. This is kind of gives you a general, overview of all things Kleros, the mechanism design, the legal aspect, the use cases, or you can read this. This is a good way to have a big overview of everything. And if you want to get involved a bit more, you can join our Telegram group here that I'm going to leave this for 1 second if you want to take a picture. So you have this Telegram group. And also we have now opened the application process for our 5th batch of the Fellowship of Justice. This is a fellowship kind of grants program that you can join for 3 or 6 months. It's fully remote, and you do a research about some aspect of Kleros, right? How do you imagine applying Kleros to different elements, to NFTs or to governance of DAOs or to content moderation and lots of different use cases. So you can apply and you will have the full support of the team for this. And if there are some specific categories that this year they will have some grants, $1,000 grant. And so if you apply to one of those, you can also make some money while you research on the future of justice, right? So just to close now, decentralized justice is the field that Kleros is pioneering. So it's made of, as I mentioned before, 3 main pillars. So one of them is the idea of this system which is decentralized and is built on blockchain technology. The second one is it's built on the principle that collective intelligence can be used as a tool to resolve disputes. And also it's based on innovative, incentive systems in order to produce the decisions, the right decisions at a much cheaper and much faster than alternative systems. So thank you very much for your attention. And of course, I'm open to any question that you might have.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Federico. That was very, very informative. I mean, I'll be honest, you answered all of most of the questions that I had really prepared. So you have me almost out of questions. But before I ask my questions, does anyone else have something specific that they would like to ask? If not, I think because you answered. Oh, we got a question. How long did it take you to set up Kleros?
Well, we have been working on this for now almost 4 years. So it's and my research about this started even before that. So it took a long time. And also what happens in our case is that we were so early because I mean, we were building Kleros in a moment when people were starting to build, the most, elemental tools for building stuff on blockchain. So Ethereum was just being started. So that was really early when we started. So we face a lot of problems regarding the cost. So as I mentioned, we target mostly smaller claims, but at the current cost of the gas because of transaction fees in Ethereum, so it kind of still is very expensive, and this is a very it's a bottleneck for us being able to address the cases that we want to address. So it took a long time, and it's still a work in progress. As mentioned, we get lots of input from the community, in particular from the fellowship program, of people who want to help. And as I said at the beginning, this is like a community endeavor. It's not like it's not a company that owns Kleros. Kleros is more like a movement more than a company.
I looked into one of your previous projects, Crowd Jury, and yeah, I found a Medium article that you posted on medium.com in 2015, I think it was, where you said the objective of the project Crowd Jury was to lay down the principles for a peer-to-peer court system. Am I correct in assuming that was the early stages of Kleros?
Those were the early stages, yeah. But that didn't have all of the mechanism design of so all of what I mentioned about this token and the mechanism design of how this works, that still wasn't well developed then, because I didn't know about enough about game theory to think of that. So that was actually like Clément idea of a mechanism design that could be used for addressing these type of situations, which also was based on previous work by other people. I mean, the good thing about the open source space is that we all built on other people's ideas, and there is, if you want to learn about the archaeology of Kleros, you can check a paper called TruthCoin by Paul Stork, which was a system and kind of an oracle system that had a design quite similar to what Kleros is now, and this, well, of course, this was an inspiration of what Kleros is. So there are different things in different places that we use to build this.
I appreciate that you spent a lot of time talking about the reliability of the jurors, because I'm sure there's something you think about a lot. For Kleros to be considered a really reliable arbitrator, to get a lot of people willing to legally bind themselves to the decision that the project makes and the jurors make, people have to believe that the jurors are reliable and consistent. And you said that they are vetted for. There's a selection process, but I was just curious, what is this how do you stop tampering? What is this selection process like?
I mean, there is no selection process. The jurors self-select into the court where they want to work by depositing their token into the court where they think they have expertise. Like, let's say I want to make some money, and I want to become a juror, and I want to join the quantum mechanics, court for quantum mechanics, disputes. I have no idea about quantum mechanics. So if I join that court and I get drawn as a juror, then I will have lots of trouble to vote coherently with the rest of the jurors, because I have no idea what I'm voting. So the best I can do is like random. And so if I do random, then I'm losing money. So I'm kind of trying to do this only once or twice, but then I see it's very hard to break this. I'm just going to stop losing money, because when you stake your coin into a court and you vote incoherently with the majority, then you lose your money. So yeah, how many times do I want to lose money before I just stop trying, right? So after 2 times I lost my money, I would just leave. So people who stay working into that court are those who they know how they should make the decisions into that specific court in those cases, right? So that's how the system works, and that's how the system can, I mean, allocate the right expertise to solve cases to the right courts for the right problems without having to KYC jurors and ask them what they know about. So that said, we are also experimenting with different mechanism designs, so even this is not going anywhere, but so we are also now developing a project called Proof of Humanity that could eventually in some courts result in a system where you have a profile and Ethereum address which is linked to identity on chain, and that identity could have some expertise that could be, and then you could only then you could ask people that they want to enter a court that they have some previous expertise. It's we are experimenting this, and we have also a researcher at the company, William, who is a mathematician, and he's basically his work is research what is the best way to build Kleros and to improve what we have to make it more secure and faster and more efficient. So we are open to also experiment with different designs, but that's how it works now.
Okay, thank you. Because you answered so many of the questions that I had prepared already, I think you're a philosophy graduate, so I hope you don't mind if I ask you just some more of philosophical questions, like from that perspective about the project.
Go ahead, please.
Do you personally think that decentralized decision making is a fairer or more efficient way of accessing justice, or giving people access to justice compared to traditional methods?
I mean, I do think that, and we also have like historical proof of that. What we know now as courts or as justice system is kind of the ideas of what 18th century people thought that was appropriate way to resolve disputes. This is not like how humans have resolved their disputes since the beginning of time. The Greek, the Athenians in particular, they would have like quite strongly disagreed with this as a fair method for resolving claims, because they would have seen this as a oligarchic. Why only some people, some lawyers or some like judges need to resolve disputes? Why not every citizen? Citizens are from the same polis and they should be allowed to participate, right? So the Greek had this idea of popular trials, and they had this very specific way of drawing on jurors, so there would not be collusion or stuff. A very good book, if you want to learn about this, there is an excellent book called Democracy and Knowledge in Ancient Athens by a Stanford historian called Josiah Ober, that explains how this worked. And it explains this from a perspective of modern network theory. And, kind of the Athenians, they kind of nailed, without knowing it, mechanism designs that we discovered recently that are efficient at solving some problems. So that's one thing. And then the other big, historical reference of what is becoming Kleros is Lex Mercatoria, which is the law merchant that was the legal system that was developed by merchant in the Middle Ages. So in the Middle Ages, you had the merchants going from one, regional fair to the other, and they had, of course, disputes, because whenever you do commerce, you get into disputes. And so these merchants, they didn't want to have their cases ruled by the king, or like let alone by a priest. I mean, they wanted to have their cases resolved by people who knew better how to solve them, and the people who knew better how to solve them were other merchants, because other merchants knew how business was made, and they knew how a letter of credit had to be crafted, or how agreement, or what could be considered as reasonable in an agreement between two merchants. So this was a kind of private legal system that was based on very strong peer-to-peer principles, because merchant disputes should be solved by merchant courts made by merchants, right? And the enforcement for the rulings of these merchant courts was not going to jail. If you didn't want to comply with a ruling made by a merchant court, you were ostracized. You were not allowed to participate in the community of merchants anymore, and so you basically lost your way of making, your business. So, kind of this is how it works. So there are, before, and this worked for a long time, and there are very different ways to solve dispute than what we know now of 3 or 1 juror or 1 judge, resolving cases. And in generally speaking, there is a lot of backlog, and this is very expensive, and people can't have access. Kleros doesn't intend to compete with traditional justice systems. We try to more focus on a kind of disputes that are not really addressed by traditional systems. These disputes happening in, as I mentioned, the video production dispute. A lot of small claims that happen in Web3 apps. So we kind of try to see those. And what we have observed, and this is not only a theory, because this is something that is working now, is that Kleros can produce rulings that are seen as fair by parties. And they it's accurate, right? So it works. And this, we have tested this empirically, time over time. That's why I showed you the case of the buyer chain, because it's an example of how this works. And it's based on principles of collective intelligence. More people, if you put more people under the right incentives to solve a problem, they are likely to solve it. And we have seen that in Kleros.
Yeah, thank you. I think that leads pretty well to.
Suleiman, one sec. Sorry for interrupting, but I think some people want to ask some questions.
Sure.
From our audience. Yeah, if you have a question, I'll just ask you to unmute and just feel free to ask it.
Oh, okay. Can I ask my first question? Yeah, I was just wondering. A question I had is, where are you guys envisioning Kleros to be in the future as a role in the society, for the long term?
Well, in the long term, what we are going to become probably is, justice system for the metaverse. If we believe that we are going to move into a metaverse, and that most of our interactions are going to be happening online and in VR worlds, how do you resolve claims happening in those worlds? These claims can be connected to almost anything. How do you, think something as simple as content moderation. You have Reddit, and you have some people who moderate, or in Facebook, they moderate the discussions happening in the platform, and then some guy, make some stupid, racist remark, or some, porn or whatever. Now you kind of have a private justice system, which is basically owned by the platform. They appoint the moderators that are going to make these decisions, and these moderators can just kick you out, and they can ostracize you without you having any recourse to anyone. If you are ostracized and you are banned from Twitter, let's say, what if you had 1 million followers, or what if you had 1,000, but these were your buyers, and these were the people which you communicated. So these platforms, they have a lot of, they're very powerful, and they have lots of influence in people's lives, and no one really appointed their moderators in a democratic way, let's say, right? They are just they just do it in a black box. So if we think that the world is moving more to metaverse situations, well, this is going to be very, very important, because being ostracized from the metaverse, like imagine Ready Player One, right? Ready Player One, it's kind of, a very, I mean, scary world where there was this owner of the universe where people just interact, and he could like just ban you, and it was over for you. You were condemned to live in that other world where no one wanted to live. So I mean, in the future, this is going definitely to be, yeah, at least a part of the governance of the metaverse.
Interesting. Thank you for your answer.
All right. I think next, Ashley, if you want to ask your question, just unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, I was just wondering, where exactly are you with this? As in, can you actually do it now? Is it possible to do this now, or is it still, I don't really know how to say that. Is it still in trial, if I can say that?
It's working. It's on the Ethereum mainnet. I mean, this is working, and this is in early stages, and there is lots of things that we are figuring out, how to make better mechanism, how to build this in such a way that it's less expensive. But this is working. It's not an idea of something we will build in the future. It's something that works, that is functional. It still doesn't have lots of use because of, well, the high cost and the scalability and etc. But at some point it will start to scale much faster. And yeah, I mean, that's something that it's actually working as we speak.
Thank you.
I have a second question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Because you do need a lot of energy and computer for all of that. Do you know if there's a downside for the environment or the climate or something?
No, because I mean, there is this argument they make against Bitcoin about the proof of work having lots of energy consumption, but this is not a concern because we are in Ethereum. Ethereum is now proof of work, but it's moving to a different algorithm, which is called proof of stake, that doesn't take any energy. So it's not really a problem, the energy consumption.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm just going to go to Ahmed now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. I wanted to ask, you describe Kleros's modus operandi being game theoretic. As a politics student, I understand how prominent game theory is in modern day politics and ancient politics. I wanted to ask, what inspires you to use game theory in your business endeavors? Thank you.
I mean, lots of the things that are built on blockchains are based on game theory, because it's about, well, creating the right incentives for agents to collaborate in a efficient way and to achieve the right outcomes. I mean, I could argue that so if you're a politics student, you may have studied all of the discussions that they had back then in the 18th century when they had the founding fathers of the United States. They were discussing what would be the best way to structure the government, and in order not to be captured by special interests, and how they invented, let's say, or they had this idea of division of powers in order for everything be in equilibrium. So those incentive systems they didn't call it game theory because it was not because that word didn't exist, but it's was some game theoretical approach to incentivizing people to act in ways that keeps the system going and that prevents the system from being attacked by special interest and malicious actors. So like what we are building now is the governance structures for the age of the internet, and we are, I think, in decades, people will see us working at this stage of the Web3 ecosystem as one of the founding fathers, if you want, of the internet, in an age where we have to worry about other things. I mean, we have to worry about bots. I mean, and attacks that come from hacks and attacks that come from different places and different vectors. So game theory is kind of the tool that you use to try to, so attackers use game theory to try to attack the system, and we use game theory to try to defend it. So it's, but it's the same that, I mean, it looks a lot to me of what the founding fathers were trying to do when they wrote the Constitution. And I don't know if that answers the question, but lots of the blockchain platforms are based on game theory to keep them secure.
That was great. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I actually have a question myself. My question is, what's the type of volume that Kleros is like seeing now, and how do you expect it to change once Ethereum moves to proof of stake algorithm?
Well, now we have we are near our case 1000. Now we have very low volume, unfortunately, because of the high gas costs of Ethereum. It's expensive to use Kleros, and it's just not, doesn't make too much sense to use it for like lots of the use cases that we envision now. I mean, next year we're going to launch a new version of the cord, which is more efficient, and there are other changes happening in Ethereum that will, drive down the cost. For us now, the main, goal and one of the main priorities we have at the company is, okay, try to have more other protocols connected to Kleros, and like the vision is like different protocols send disputes to Kleros, Kleros resolve them and send back the decision to this protocol. So these protocols could be, as I mentioned, exchanges trying to decide which tokens to list, NFT platforms deciding if some NFT that was submitted to them is a scam or is a plagiarized piece of art or is so whatever, or others that have disputes of the kind of video production stuff that I mentioned at the beginning. So it's kind of a decentralized court system for lots of these claims that are happening in the Web3 ecosystem, and that require some human element for resolution, because these claims, I mean, they cannot be just enforced by smart contracts, because smart contracts cannot evaluate, situations that have some subjectivity or some interpretation. So that's where Kleros is going in the future. So even if now it's expensive, technology gets things cheaper every day. So that's where we're going.
All right, thank you very much. I'm gonna hand you back to Suleiman now.
Yeah, unless anyone else has any more questions, I think I have just one last more question on the topic of Web3 while we're at it, and the future of Kleros. And I think this is this is definitely my last question. So this is a very general question, really. Do you think it's a good thing to automate a very human industry like the legal sector? And by extension, I'm really asking, what's your opinion on AI and automating a lot of these industries where people's lives depend on the decisions made by, I guess, smart.
You already, lots of things are automated in the airplanes that you board. I mean, your life. So there's lots of life at stake there. Computers are automated systems that handle most of our lives. So it's not, a problem. In the specific case of justice systems, we are going to have, as I said, a combination of let me show you again this little chart that was over here. So this is how I think it's going to work in the future. For your parking ticket, because you they just park in the wrong place. I mean, this can be automated. I mean, and fine, that's not a problem. I mean, it's a couple of bugs stuff. You will still have, you will always have also, if you don't agree with the robot, decision, then you can still go to human court. That could be Kleros, and that could be overturn, the robot decision. So the resolution system of the future are not going to be like fully automated, nor maybe fully, human made. It's going to be a combination, probably. The first, whatever can be automated, and in the first instance, maybe it's fine, because we also, we are like balancing. So we have a trade-off here. Either we just do it all, like we used to 200 years ago, which probably people will trust more, because they trust more the good old justice system than robots. But how many people are left behind, and how many people they just don't have access because they can't afford lawyers, and we don't. It's not that we have to just do everything that the old way, or like just automate everything. we will probably there's going to be like a different like Lego blocks, where your first contact with a dispute resolution system is going to be probably with an automated like a chatbot. This is going to be your first, and then if the chatbot decides that your case needs to be reviewed by humans, it's going to go to humans, right? Now, do you? I think that the question that we will start asking ourselves in the future is, do we want humans to review our case, or do we trust more the robots? That's a question to which I don't have an answer now, but maybe that's what concerns me a bit more.
All right, yeah. Thank you for answering that question, and thank you for coming and taking the time out of your day for this, for being our first guest speaker as well. We really appreciate it. And unless anyone else has any last questions, I just want to personally say thank you on behalf of our society for taking the time out of your day to do this presentation and answering our questions. And I'm really excited for what Kleros does for the future personally.
I think there was one more question from Ahmed Jama.
No, my bad. I pressed on by accident.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Okay,
Well, awesome. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you very much for coming, Federico. Have a good day.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.